Good afternoon, class. We all know Dr. Kevorkian, or Dr. Death, as many people referred to him, as he was responsible for aiding patients in suicide. These people weren't necessarily psychologically off. Their big issue was they were getting older and they were sick and they weren't feeling well and they just wanted an out. So he aided them, and obviously he went to jail and did some time for it. But today I'll be touching on that subject again, as I'm going to tackle the issue of physician-assisted suicide and whether it is right or wrong. Now I want you all to first imagine a world filled with pain, suffering, and depression. Envision that the constant suffering and inability to lead a life that you once used to be able to live. Being able to put a smile on the face of a loved one, or being able to go places, take part in family events. These things that used to come so natural. Not being able to do things like this, it just seems unbearable. And that lifestyle is just something that a lot of people can't handle. Ultimately, it could begin to hurt one so much that they start to lose all hope of ever getting back to that lifestyle they once lived. A lifestyle of freedom, being able to go wherever you want, spend time with the family and the loved ones. Losing the lifestyle, losing the lifestyle and the freedom just because of an illness or a mental problem is not an easy concept to grasp. It hits you hard, and when it hits you, you start to lose all sight of what you used to enjoy. So sometimes people get so caught up in everything that the choice becomes it becomes like a problem that people now need to quickly force an idea of whether they want to make the choice of life or death. Do they want to spend the rest of their lives living this way or feeling this way? People who decide that life is no longer a plausible option are faced with the choice of how to go about illuminating themselves from living. And it sounds like a really bad issue, but a lot of people are in that much pain that they want to just get out. They want an escape. So there's simply two options. One choice is to commit suicide and kill oneself, or the second would be what I'm going to be talking about in asking a physician to aid you. Now, assisted suicide is defined as the suicide committed by someone who with assistance from another person. I feel as though assisted suicide should be legal and a matter of choice to everyone. Being that you live in a country of freedom, you should be able to choose if you really want to do something like this. And I know that a lot of you are going to think the other side, but I'm going to tell you why I feel this way. So, what exactly does assisted suicide entail? Well, assisted suicide is when a person goes to a licensed physician and asks for them to help kill themselves. As ludicrous and crazy as it sounds, this practice is actually legal in 3 states: Montana, Oregon, and Washington. While the majority of the U.S. considers it illegal, it is in fact the state's courts to decide. This practice is carried out through medication that leads to the killing of the person. The process is actually similar to that of lethal injection and that method used by the judicial system in capital punishment. What happens is the patient comes to the doctor and asks the doctor to help them take their life. The doctor usually prescribes a lethal dose of barbiturates to help complete the process. And the rational person may ask, well, you know what, how often does it actually happen? But it actually happens more often than you think, in those 3 states to be exact. In fact, 15.6 deaths are from assisted suicide per 10,000 reported deaths in Oregon, according to registered nurse Angela Morrow's article, Reasons for Seeking Physician-Assisted Suicide. Although these statistics are from only one state, it accounts for a significant amount of deaths in that state. And the rate is actually increasing. It's increased in Oregon since then. So, additionally, Morrow goes on to mention that out of the total number of patients who actually asked for assisted suicide, 62% actually completed the process. And in other words, that means that 30% of the people that asked for the process didn't actually end up going through with it. This goes to show that a lot of people don't end up completing the process, although it's not more than the people that actually did. It's still the means of them being able to choose. If patients want to go through with it, then they should be able to. And the people that don't, like that 38%, they might think that they want to, but they have time and they think about it and they realize, no, I don't want to. But it's the idea of self-choice That is the idea that I'm trying to point out to you all. So now let's dive into the patient's view along with the physician's point of view on the matter. The reasons patients gave when requesting physician-assisted suicide in Oregon: 86% reported a decreasing ability to participate in activities that made life enjoyable. 100% reported loss of autonomy, and 86% reported loss of dignity. All of this is in Morrow's report. Some reasons that doctors are okay with the practice are that, for one, most of the patients that they see are really struggling and in serious pain or mental illness. Being able to put people out of their suffering so that they and their loved ones can rest at ease is actually a good feeling and something that they can rest easy on. After all, at the end of the day, it is every doctor's job to make the pain go away and try to help the patient in the best of their ability. Even though this is arguably a gross way to eliminate pain, it is still a need that they do provide in those three states. Now people might ask, well, where do you draw the line on this concept? Where is it becoming too much? Why is it the physician cannot go this far? Oh, what if people are just doing it because they're depressed and crazy? Well, let me tell you, there's a fine line that physicians use to determine the acceptance in these cases. There's a great deal of understanding that depressed individuals could easily abuse this process and this practice. It is because of that the medical field takes these cases very seriously and that they respect the families as being the utmost importance. First and foremost, it is important to note that the professionalism must always be maintained. Just as easily as it is for patients to abuse this, doctors can as well. There's a strict line that must be monitored by the medical field, and overdosing patients is not the same as assisted suicide. Overdosing is murder, yes, by every single circumstance. But it's not if the patient asks. Assisted suicide is when a patient comes to the doctor and asks for their help, not as much as the doctor prescribing medications and causing an overdose. It's totally different. That's something that I really need to point out and stress. This is one of the reasons why most of the states do not pass the law, but the states that do, they feel like that is okay. And it's a sense of being able to have that self-choice again. To complete a full grasp on assisted suicide, let's examine the perspective from the patient side. There are a few perspectives that we can take into account to completely cover the patient's perspective. First, let's discuss the actual patient themselves. Dealing with a mental illness really isn't an easy task. Mental illness takes a person out of the normal state of thinking and transforms their mental behavior in an abnormal way of thinking. When you take somebody out of their normal way of thinking and their normal thought process, pain, sorrow, depression, and being upset, those feelings start to creep in and those start to set into your system. When this becomes too much for somebody to handle, especially being older and not feeling you have that much to live for anymore, patients start to seek help to end the suffering. In the eye of the patients, they see it as a last resort, and they believe that death is the only way to end their suffering, and they do not want to attempt suicide on their own. Patients weigh the balance between pain and the ability to cope with it. When the scale tilts on the one side, they have a decision to make. The decision of the quality of the life, of where it is now, where it used to be, and what impact it'll have on their families. Families may be the single most important factor in deciding whether to complete the process or not. Family and love is a powerful force that can be a determining factor when people get cured from pain and suffering, or when they cannot tolerate one more day of suffering. Over 42% of family members had an opportunity to make strong connections with their loved ones prior to death. Regarding the cases in those three states of Oregon, Montana. The family impact speaks for itself, though. It is a huge difference that patients make, whether they want to complete the process or not. They want to make a connection. Sometimes it's at the end of their life. People want to make the connections with, being older. You want to share things with your younger people, the younger population, and things like that. In opposition to the process, many perspectives of morality and logic come into play. The opposition would say that there are plenty of health alternatives to assisted suicide. and alternative treatments such as counseling or pain treatment, all to ease the pain, and that assisted suicide does not even need to be thought about. But how many people in that state of mind are really going to be willing to go through the counseling and to receive the treatment and really just try to get better? How many people with that mindset of knowing that they're not happy are going to just miraculously change at the end of their life? It's if they want to do that, they're going to do it. So why not do it the right way and do it where they don't have to suffer anymore? So again, I'm going to stress the idea of freedom of choice. And lastly, I just want to close out by saying assisted suicide provides a safe escape for those who are truly suffering. Assisted suicide provides an escape to those who seek one. Ultimately, it should be up to the patient and whether they wish to end their life or not, if they're suffering and if they're not feeling well. A lot of people that think about it and consider assisted suicide near the end of their lives would rather die a painless death than live in excruciating pain the rest of their lives. And a lot of families don't want to see that either. If your patient or if your family member or loved one is sitting there just suffering at 94, 95 years old in the hospital, you don't want them to keep undergoing tests and die there. Is that what you really want? Is that where they really want? You have to take that into account. And understand that physicians do follow strict enforcement to ensure that they aren't using these cases for people who are just depressed and just feeling bad about themselves. That it is people that truly are feeling sick and ill and are hurting. Patients seek the doctor. Remember that. Not the other way around. It never is the other way around. So I feel that assisted suicide should be allowed, and everyone who is truly in pain late in life deserves to choose their own fate. I appreciate your time and thank you.